Hey everybody, welcome to the Last I.T podcast in the world. I'm David Wheat from Alt-CIO Consulting. He's Darrick Johnson from somewhere in Texas. How you doing, Darrick?
Doing well.
Yeah. We're wearing our hats again. Is it the Nuclear Nights?
Yeah, Nuclear Baseball Academy Nights.
Yeah.
My son's homeschool high school team just wrapped up their season, so gotta wear their
that's
hat
better
again.
that's better than having like winters across the hat, like nuclear winters.
Yes, much
kind of
less
depressing.
popular.
Yep. I'm back to the Wheat Farrier Services, my cousin Katie in northern Arizona. If you need horses shoed, she's an amazing farrier. So also rocking the Noosa yogurt hoodie.
Very
I don't know if you
nice.
see it. Yeah. And, these are not affiliate links, but let me update you on Noosa real quick. So I'm trying currently the hot honey Noosa.
I might have to try that one.
Yeah. Back to sort of the spices.
I'm still lamenting the absence of the spicy.
Yeah, I put a little bit of granola. By the way, we don't get paid by Noosa yogurt. They'll probably sue us for even showing their product. But like this one's pretty interesting. I put a little bit of granola in it, which gives a little bit of sweet, and that makes it good dessert. But the thing I'm really excited about, which probably shows you about my personality, is they've brought back the plain yogurt.
Plain.
And we use it as sour cream substitute. It's really, really good. I would think this is the best plain yogurt, but I can't get anyone in Noosa marketing to listen to me on that. So let's banter a little bit, and then we're going to do a little bit about a cyber news story, and then we'll talk about in the big idea about if there really is such a thing as the most qualified candidate or the best candidate. We'll talk about that a little bit from an IT or any context. I need to ask your opinion. If this is about texting, if you text me, Darrick texts Dave and says, "Hey, got time for a quick call?" Okay. And I say, "Yep." Question. Whose responsibility is it to press dial?
I feel like that's such an awkward situation. I feel like the initiator should dial. I think it should be, "Hey, got time for a call?" Yes, dial. So
I so agree with you. It has to be the initiator.
Yeah.
Because the initiator clearly is ready for the call. The person affirmed, affirmative, I'm ready for a call.
Mm-hmm.
But have you ever had the standoff a little bit?
Yeah. It's very uncomfortable.
Yep.
Are you waiting for me to dial? Yeah.
So that's my follow-up. And by the way, there is no standard setting organization that I have found that controls the sets of standards for this. So I think we're doing it on this podcast. We're setting the standard for this.
We might want to form this committee.
Exactly. The UCCTS 101 ISO, I don't know what but something. We're setting it right now. Okay. So we agree. The initiator should press dial within how many minutes or seconds?
Within 5 seconds of the response.
You read my mind. We are so copacetic. I would allow 10, but 5 is better.
Yeah. Because 10, you start to get into that awkward, well, am I supposed to
call you?
Or
okay, so
theoretical? Yeah.
Yeah, the plenary session of the Text Messaging Standards Committee will come to order, banging a gavel. And so ordered, so will it be done, that from now on, anyone within the sound of my voice, if you've initiated do you have time for a call, and they've responded in the affirmative, you dial fast. Okay, great. Fast. Thank you for helping clarify that for me.
And maybe a future session on the validity of the, "Hey, your name," and that's the end of the texting or Teams thread.
Right, exactly. Hey, Darrick.
Can you articulate in a sentence why you're messaging me? It would be great.
Yeah. This is a big one for you. You've brought it up a couple times.
It's very sensitive.
Yeah. Okay. Second out of, I think, 3 banter topics, not counting the Noosa. So my personal image consultant was cleaning out our basement and went through some old boxes the other day, and we came across this, which is I have to hold it in a certain way. This is the Pace Membership Club card from back in the day. Question 1, why we saved this in a box? Because Pace memberships Clubhouse has not been around since the mid-90s. So anyway, Pace membership was a proto Sam's Costco, as a club warehouse.
Yeah.
Started in Colorado, and we lived in Colorado Springs. We've got this card. The reason my fingers are doing the thing where it's covering up the card is because my membership number, guess what it is, Darrick?
Oh, no. Your social? Driver's
It is
license?
my social security number,
Oh,
and it is handwritten. It is handwritten on this card.
oh
And on the
no.
back of the card, it says, let me find it. Members are required to present this card upon entry into the club warehouse and every time they check out.
So just like an identity theft treasure trove right there.
Did identity theft not exist in the 90s, or did we just not know about it?
I think we were super naive about it
Yeah.
pre-internet.
Yeah. So PII, personally identifiable.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's a stunner for me. I can now throw this away because I just kept it to show you on the podcast
Yeah.
how back in the prehistoric ages, we were not
That's
really thinking.
getting
And I
shredded.
just
And
gave it to them, and
yeah,
they, every time I walked in, I'm waving this thing around.
how handy is this? We
Ridiculous.
have a unique ID for you already. Yep.
What a genius idea.
This is great.
Lordy. Okay. Into that. That's enough on that. Just ridiculous how things are. Okay. Now, final banter topic, I think, is that we have to catch up on last episode. You and I talked about this back in parking. People who insist on
Mhm.
backing up in
Yeah.
park. We
So
had
frustrating.
opinions. We're generally not for it. And then out of the blue, you felt like hundreds of mile away shame because you had apparently
I did
backed
it.
into the spot. And I
Yeah.
don't know the details. We've never discussed it except for the fact that you felt the need to confess to me. I'm here to hear your confession if you'd like to, my son.
So we were in Corpus Christi, Texas, beach town for my son's baseball tournament. Different town. We're gonna go. Games are over. Going to Texas Roadhouse for dinner, and parking was a little tight. Just making my excuses here. I had just seen an
Okay,
Instagram
so far we've
reel,
got another town, excuse number
another town.
one. Yeah,
I
parking
had
was
just
tight, number
seen an
two.
Instagram reel from a British fellow talking about the merits of back end parking and
Oh,
all the reasons it was good. And we pulled into the parking lot and it was very tight. And one of the reasons he listed was the ability to back into a space tighter than you could pull into it directly.
hmm,
And which made sense from my agriculture background because like combine harvesters have the steerable wheels in the back, which lets
hmm.
them turn on a much tighter schedule. So I thought it was time, and didn't know anybody there that would see me do it. So I had to do it, but I had to text you and confess afterward. They work great. Backup cameras make it super easy, and it was, I think it was
And
the right call and justifiable, but I still felt guilty.
have you felt some temptation to kind of keep doing it, even in the town that you know, because it sort of felt
Yeah,
kind of good? Felt kind
I
of
did.
good.
I feel like the secret is like not feeling pressure behind you. I think it's why we get irritated when people do it is when
Hmm.
you see this line of cars waiting behind you while you do your elaborate backing scheme
Yeah.
versus I think that was a situation where it was better. No one else was coming into that parking area.
Yeah.
So I think I felt
Or
better.
they're doing it like in my town where it's got the fishbone angled and they're doing the like take up two lanes and do it where it doesn't make any sense at all.
Yes, I
Yeah,
got to see more
okay.
about that.
All right. Well, you're forgiven, and I'm going to keep an open mind because my
Okay.
update is right after our podcast. I was down by my small town's town hall, and they have converted their parking to intentionally
Reverse
back in
fishbone.
parking. Yeah, reverse fishbone. So you drive past the slot. The slots are all aimed the wrong way now. You
Mm-hmm.
drive past them a little bit and you back in, and every spot in front of my town hall. And I think it's a simulation. I think I'm living in a simulation.
They're just
When
messing with you.
when I confess to the simulation that something kind of bugs me, it says, "Really, watch this. Hold my beer." Yeah,
It's an interesting thing of like, you're making one outcome really, really good and really easy, which is the exit, right? The exit
yeah.
is very visible, and that is a hard spot. But you're also making the entry, I mean, just
I think it's a
really bad.
wash. I think
Yeah.
one is maybe they're like I'm not sure we're getting any. Okay, appreciate that. Well, I think that's enough for the banter segment. We'll be right back and talk about silliness in government cyber attacks here in a minute. Thanks, everybody. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Last I.T podcast in the world. And Darrick, we've got this news story in front of us. It's a pretty interesting it's an interesting news story on its own, but a couple governments ended up suing each other, and some drama in some small towns in Ohio. I'd like to talk about it with you and sort of like tell you what bugs me, and we can compare notes. But here's the headline and then the opening paragraph, and then we'll just tell people what the story was. Here's the headline: County auditor ordered to pay $80,000 after cyber attack. And then the byline is War in Ohio. A Trumbull County judge has ordered County Auditor Martha Yoder to pay $80,000 and change to Bezetta Township after the township's tax funds were mistakenly deposited into a fraudulent bank account. Okay, great. So some small town drama, lawsuits happening. I guess the township is in the county.
Okay.
And from what I read on the story, the county seems to collect some kind of, I don't know if it's property taxes or some kind of funds,
sales tax or something.
and then they redistribute them to these municipalities, of which Bezetta Township, Bezetta Township was supposed to get some of their share of funds, and it didn't come into their bank account, the township's. It went into a fraudster's account. Gosh, how do these things happen? How does that happen? Well, interesting story, as you know. If you read the full story, the township's fiscal officer, they had multi-factor authentication. We here at the pod strongly recommend multi-factor authentication.
Big fan.
We like it when you don't get nagged with it 4 or 5 times a day. Mm-hmm. Instead, it's 4 or 5 times a year. See me if you're interested in what I just said. But anyway, MFA, multi-factor authentication, is necessary these days. It keeps hackers away 90+% of the time. Anyway, they had it on. The township email system had multi-factor authentication turned on. And for some reason, and we don't know why, Darrick, I need to know why, the fiscal officer asked IT to please turn off MFA for this one email account.
It's so annoying.
Yeah,
I mean, for the one account, not for the not a system wide.
It literally says to be turned off for the email account.
Weird.
Yeah.
Like, was that almost? That almost sounds like that was the fraudster's first attempt, right?
Such a great point.
Hey, can you turn this off?
Sure. Which makes me think, based on recent prank phone calls that we've heard about in sporting world, that maybe the fraudster is the township's fiscal officer's 21-year-old son.
21-year-old defensive coordinator. Yes.
Why don't you turn that MFA off? You don't need that.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
And then he goes to work.
5 minutes later.
He would have all the information needed and access to the computer.
We
just made up a suspect, and we
might have cracked it right here.
We've become a true crime podcast. We don't even know if the fiscal officer has a child. But we just condemned them as possibly a suspect. Bad on us. Okay. All right. So anyway, bad step number 1. The township that's waiting for the funds transfer from the county says, I don't like MFA. Turn it off. And IT inexplicably
complied.
Does. If I'm the IT leader there, Darrick, that doesn't happen. We're like, nope. Sorry. But someone did it. That's mistake number 2. IT shouldn't have turned it off.
Right. And as we've talked before, what's the organization structure? Was IT subordinate to said fiscal officer and had to say yes? But yeah. Good
broad field thinking there. Maybe they had to. Maybe they reported the person. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe their 21-year-old son runs IT.
Right.
This 21-year-old son, man, we're circling around on that guy. So anyway, okay. So thing number 2 that went bad was they turned that off. Here's to your point about being super suspicious about like this all being a setup. Like after MFA was turned off, surprisingly, that one email account was compromised.
Mm-hmm.
They gained literal access. Now, as you know, in email scams, there's spoofing. That's where I send an email with a garbagey email address, not the real email address, but I mask the name like it is the real name. I put Darrick Johnson over my weird email address, and it kind of looks like it's from Darrick, but it isn't really under the hood. Right. That's spoofing. Okay. Real access is when you are in the email account, which is what happened. They got into the email account of the township's fiscal officer. Then they emailed the county, dear county, we've updated our banking information. Please update the bank. And now we have our third problem. So in every case where a vendor or someone you pay changes their payment information, the best practice is to phone call them from a number that you already have on their vendor record, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to the one that's in the scam email. You see the
Right.
difference?
Right.
Yep. And in fact, I've had this happen to me. I'm a small time vendor. People pay me. I've literally had them call and verify my bank
Payment.
details.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So problem number three, I ran three. Yeah, they didn't. The county didn't do that. So there's blame to go around here. And then what happened was the next time they did a payment run for the $80,000, it it
It went.
transferred out of county bank into scammers bank. Township needs the 80,000 to do whatever it is they do. Streets, parks, trash collection, whatever. They say, "Hey, you still owe us." And the judge says, after hearing all the sides, "Yep,
Yep.
all it says is you have to pay them, despite all the mistakes." I mean, just stunning.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit breathtaking that because there is at least the last stop where the county sent the money to the wrong place and
Correct.
missed a due diligence step, and the victim's supposed to just eat it because, like,
Yeah.
sorry, I sent it to the wrong guy.
Yeah, we take power on this podcast. As you know, earlier on we set a standard for texting protocol. We just took that and said
Mm-hmm.
no one else took this, so we're going to fill the power vacuum. Let's declare ourselves a two-person panel of judges on this case. You sound like you would find that the county what was kind of the last stop and therefore guilty
Yeah, I feel like they're the ones that transferred funds to a fraudulent account,
without verifying it first,
and
which is
yeah,
common documented business process. Yeah,
right.
I would too. I'd say
It stinks, but it's
maybe I'd
you
do.
can't tell the other party that yeah, somebody impersonated you and lied to us, so you're out of luck.
I might be tempted to pull a Solomon and split the baby, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah.
So
You are
like
ordered to reinstate multi-factor
40,
authentication.
40, no, 40. I'd say, okay, you both messed up. You owe them $40,000.
I'm a little
Let,
curious
let
too
this be a
because
lesson to both of you.
lawyers are pretty expensive, and I wonder how much of that 80K. Like,
Mm,
I know you got to get it figured out, but like, I bet you burned through that 80K between those two parties in the same governmental structure pretty fast.
yeah.
But
Yeah, perfect. Let's wrap it up with some findings. Number one, turn on MFA, leave it on.
yes,
Every all email accounts in the world should be protected with multi-factor authentication. Number two, if your MFA is painful and you don't like it and it's annoying and a nuisance, don't
get
ask
the
to turn
better.
it off. Call David Wheat at AltCIO Consulting, and I will tell you how to be smart MFA so that you get them a few times in your life, not all the time. It's easier than you think. I can't believe I make a living at this, but I do. So there you go.
There you go.
Number three, part of cybersecurity is policies, actually. It's not technology.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what do you do when someone asks to change their bank account? Well, we have a policy and training for that. There's not really a cyber software protection for that. It's got to be smart people following standard best practices, period.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Well,
All
we
right.
talked about Instagram a little bit. I saw an Instagram reel on what hacking looks like in the real world, and there was an example of, they're frantically trying to hack into this account versus what it's like in the movies, and they get to they have multi-factor authentication turned on. So what do we do now? Nothing. I guess we just give up. Yep. Move on. It's
Yeah.
that
Because,
good. It's that good of a barrier that
yeah. And
it's
here's the
work,
other
but
thing, move on because we're looking for the ones that don't have it turned on,
right,
i.e.,
right,
i.e., Bezetta Township financial officers
right.
email account, and they'll hit it eventually. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, all right. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. The judges have spoken, so decreed, so issued, so shall it be. All right, we'll be back after this break with the big idea on what is the most qualified candidate and how we hire that here in a minute. So thanks, everybody. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Last I.T podcast in the world and the big idea, where we discuss ideas that are larger than medium ideas. Okay, terrific. So, Darrick, we've pre-talked about this, but so you know where I'm going with this. But there's been a lot of talk, just in general, about we should only hire the most qualified people, or we
Right.
should hire the best candidate in every situation. And I was thinking back over my hiring career as a corporate and manager leader. I think I might have directly hired, it's hard to say, 80 to 100 people probably.
Yeah.
Um, and as I was looking back on that and trying to remember vague details, but like rarely in those cases was there like a slam dunk, if you've got, start off with 100 resumes and then 20
Right.
and then 10 for phone interviews and then 5 for on-site interviews. I mean, often there is a candidate that emerges as that everyone, prefers them, but like slam dunk right out of the chutes, objectively the best candidate is a really rare phenomenon in my opinion. Like
Yeah.
because there are objective criteria for a job on any job description. There are objective ones. Then there's all these subjective ones, team player, innovator, uh,
Right.
whatever else they are. So I was thinking about that and I wanted to talk about how we balance whether, in IT, we'll talk about technical hiring in a minute, but it also applies obviously to any hiring. But how do we both try to be as objective and hire the best resource we can for our company and for our department and for our team, but also sort of like leave room for these subjective things, the more human or softer side of things. So let's talk through that a little bit if you don't mind. Any thoughts
Yeah.
before we roll into
No,
it?
I think like so we pre talked about it. One of the things that's interesting once you start getting into it is, at least for me, and I think for you too, like we haven't worked in these kind of civil service jobs where there's maybe an exam that
Mm,
quantifiably puts people ahead of each other, and that's a separate conversation of is that a good measure.
right.
But I mean, in any of the hiring I've been a part of, even in technical interviews, there's rarely a concrete score. There's once in a while they'll do like an online test or something, but for the most part, it's even the quote unquote objective is it's very subjective about a person's skill set one versus another.
Yeah.
It's a feel.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate what you said. But even in our civil service, we as a society allow ourselves to put certain thumbs on the scale in hiring.
Yep. Yep.
We
Yeah.
say, we say, oh, you passed the test and you have served your country in the military,
Hmm.
so we're adding points to you.
Yep.
Like
Yeah. I mean, very,
which,
very specific.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And
Very
so,
specific.
I think society wide, I don't think this is an issue. I think we all instinctively know that we bring a lot of information into our hiring process, and some of them are objective and some of them are subjective. But
Right.
let's do another example. Let's do this. This is one of my favorite. Like, who was by the way, best and most are superlatives.
Mm.
So, like, who was the greatest basketball player in NBA history? Like
Yeah.
some people are going to say Michael Jordan. Some people are going to say Kobe Bryant. There's going to be recency bias.
Right.
Everyone's going to forget about Bill Russell,
Right.
or things like that. In college, Pete Maravich, had a
Hmm.
very short career, short pro career, I
Yeah.
think.
What
Actually,
kinds of play you value? What
yeah. Or back in our day, like Terrell
championships
Davis,
versus
yeah.
yeah.
So even if you ask 100 sports journalists who is the greatest NBA, you will not get 100 of the same answer.
Right. You will probably get five. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you
Right.
probably get 5.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But the point is, if greatest is completely objective, like most points scored, just add up all the stats, whoever wins is the best.
Hmm.
But it isn't. So
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
every time we try to solve a superlative at longest, sometimes the fastest person in the world, like fine, they hold that title for
Hmm.
probably like 6 months,
Right.
And
For
is it in the 100, the 200, the hurdles, the 400, the mile, the marathon?
yeah. What
Right,
really?
Yeah. So anyway, I think superlatives and best and most are really problematic. So let's talk through that a little bit. Let's hire Darrick Johnson and sort of exercise our way through it.
Okay.
So, by the way, like I said before, like I don't need to know Darrick's information. I just hire him because I've done that. I think 3 times, maybe 4. Uh, so, what would be some objective criteria that we might find on a reasonable job description for which you're applying for a job? The
Yeah. I mean,
objective parts.
I think a big one you see is, years of experience in a technology or in a role. I think there's we can talk about whether those are always the right metrics, but I think you can say this person's been in, .NET development for 20 years.
Yep.
This person's managed people or led a team. Like those are yes or no things that
Boxes you can check,
you can
right?
clear a bar, right?
Yep.
Bachelor's degree is, that's a huge conversation about, is that a good metric? But that's a very yes or no question.
Yeah. And I agree. We don't need to settle whether they're good or bad. We'll just talk about what's typical. It's pretty
Mm-hmm.
typical, probably for your role. Bachelor's degree required,
Yep.
probably.
Yep.
Maybe it says master's degree preferred. I don't know if that's true
Yeah.
in
Yeah, you'll
software
see
dev
that, or like,
land.
again, to objective metrics, we'll say a master's degree is worth 8 years of experience. So if you're 12 years in a master's degree or 20 years without it, or, some of
Wow.
those kinds
Yeah.
of,
Okay. So
however they quantify.
let's just pick those two. Let's just say years of experience doing the thing. Oh, let's do three. I'm going to do three years of experience doing what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Development with .NET, what C sharp,
Yep.
right? No, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. Maybe
No, I
the
think,
language doesn't even matter.
and that's a whole other conversation. I think in a fast moving field like technology, language matters, but it's not the most important thing, especially like
Interesting.
I think there's language ecosystems more than specific languages. And that's kind of a red flag sometimes on a job description is it so narrow because of a very um, small technical stack choice that you've made. If I need
Mm,
someone that's good at PostgreSQL because we're using that,
yeah.
versus I need a quick learner that's a good developer and a good architect.
Yeah. Just to give ourselves three really objective things. We're going to bat around three objective things for a minute. Let's say 15 years of experience using .NET C sharp,
Mm-hmm.
C++, C sharp or C++.
C sharp.
C sharp. Sorry, that's an old
Oh,
reference.
yeah. It's a
Yeah,
whole.
sorry. Number two, bachelor's degree required. Number three, I'm going to say industry experience, has worked in,
Mm,
let's say, the medical industry.
right.
Okay, those
Yeah.
three. So if and there could be others, but really those are pretty typical objective things.
Right.
So here's the dilemma. Right off the bat, you'll have Darrick who has a bachelor's degree. You don't have a master's, do you?
No. No
Good.
master.
They're a waste of time in
Thank you.
IT. Good for you. You
Thank you.
didn't need it. Um, so check. But what if the resume right next to yours, I'm the hiring manager, it says, "Oh, I've got a bachelor's degree, just like Darrick does, but I've got a master's degree in, whatever,
Hmm.
advanced technology architecture." So here's my question. Do I immediately just throw Darrick's resume out because got it? You know what I mean?
Right.
No, because that's
Yeah.
only one objective measure.
Yeah. It's one. It's a subjective one because it's not is a bar you have to clear,
It's
and then
yeah, yeah.
and then
It,
you're weighing other things against that. Right.
it's a pretend objective thing. It's
Right.
kind of squishy. It's a little bit more
Right.
squishy than we think.
It's
Now let's
it's
talk
very, it's
about
very provable. You have it or you don't. Right.
Yeah, let's talk about 15 years of .NET C
Yeah.
sharp
Yes.
experience.
Yes or no. You have
Yeah,
that or you don't.
yeah, it is. But what if you've got 15.0 years and the
Mm,
resume right next to you has a master's degree and 15.5 years of
right.
experience? If we're
You're
just going to be
you're you're
objective,
you're starting to tip the scale toward that candidate, right? With measurable traits.
if we say I'm going to hire the best candidate, period, I'm weighting all that stuff probably
Hmm.
heavier than I should because again, I don't think that's the way our brains work.
Right.
Because really it's just a little bit of a bar you need to get over. And generally, you don't get a lot of plus points for clearing the bar by extra. It's like the
Right.
high jump.
Right. It's
You cleared the bar by a lot, but you still cleared the bar.
yeah.
And then the third thing is industry. Let's say that Darrick hasn't worked in the medical field. I think you have, but
I
let's say you
have, yeah.
haven't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Let's,
have, yeah.
yeah, but let's say you haven't. And the candidate, resume number two has.
Yes.
Again, as a hiring manager, am I done? Do I have my candidate? And in no case that I ever did was I done yet. In other words, I'm
Right.
not just looking at resumes,
Right. You might have had a
checking
lean.
boxes.
You might have had
Like,
a pros versus cons, and you're building that
yeah.
list. But
Now let's go to the interview. Why do we even interview people if you know what I mean?
no, that's a great
Uh,
point. That's an incredibly subjective exercise of
yeah. But it's proving my point is because we are hiring on the subjective. We want to hear how you articulate thoughts. We want to watch you process things. We
Mm-hmm.
might want to watch how you greet the receptionist. I have seen this on
Yes,
LinkedIn. I kind of watch. After I do interviews of candidates, I ask the receptionist, how the
that's a
candidates
great
all treated,
that's a
right?
great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, but you love it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
why? Tell me why you love it.
Because I think it's a very you get a very candid window into the person when there's how they're treating someone that they think can't move them up or down.
Yeah, I
It's how
totally
you treat
agree.
people in your life. It's a huge window into character and how they'll work.
It is. I totally agree. Also, it might be marginally unfair. Do you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah,
Maybe the person was nervous.
yeah.
Maybe,
Maybe they're
uh,
introverted and they weren't mean, but they weren't
yeah,
gregarious with the receptionist, or maybe they had a cold and were keeping their distance. I mean, who knows
yeah.
what would
I'm
have?
still with you.
Yeah.
We're collecting these little kind of things that catch in our antennae
Mm-hmm.
about, is this person who they say they are? Number two, are they a good person? Will they be a good fit on our team? Will they be toxic? Will they not be toxic? Will they be a complementary to the team? Will they be destructive to the team? Do I think they'll stay here for 3 years, or do I think they'll bolt after? These things are not on the resume,
No.
except for the job bolting, maybe. But okay. So I think the point of that exercise was, even what we'd consider the most objective parts of the job description, we always allow ourselves wiggle room. We
Right.
might hire Darrick Johnson, even if he doesn't have medical industry experience, if we can interview him, because he's great. He
Right.
just tells us all the right stuff, clicks with the team. He developed this cool app, whatever.
Yeah, we had a good
So
connection.
yeah.
Yep.
Now let's go to the subjective side of the resume. We just destroyed the objective side. Now we go to the truly subjective side, and you'll find what are some things we might find on job description in the sort of like the squishier requirements or wish listy things.
Yeah, I mean, I think we started to touch on that. I think when you get some of the more niche technology picks, and I don't know if this is what you're after, but I think there's some of those where there really is a trade off of very niche technology specifics versus how do you convey, that you're a good developer, or you have resolved technical debt for your employer,
Mm-hmm.
you've architected systems versus just doing one at a time changes as you were told. Sometimes you
Right.
can with your role and in verbiage, but a lot of that comes down to how you write your resume and how you describe what you did.
Yeah.
You just point to a technology you did for that.
Yeah. When I was interviewing, I'd ask a lot of subjective questions that didn't leave a wiggle room out. I wouldn't say like, "Have you ever worked with a difficult person?"
Right.
I'd say describe without naming names the characteristics that made a person you worked with very difficult to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you my first filter on that. My first filter on that is if they said, "Oh, I get along with everybody." It's
Yeah, that's a lie.
like okay, so first of all, you're just gaming the interview system,
Mm-hmm.
because we all are human beings,
Yeah, or you
and you
just
just
don't care enough to ever have a beef with anybody. Like,
yeah, nobody, yeah, like, yeah, yeah, exactly. And questions like that sort of like we're looking on the human side,
mhm.
and then what did you do about that? And how did you reconcile that? And how did that affect your relationship going forward? And things like that. There's always a lot of sort of
Mhm.
relationship and communication questions. I'm making sure that their thoughts can come out in a clear and understandable way, understanding that people might be nervous and you kind of have to grade on a curve, but
Yeah.
communication, we're literally asking them to tell about themselves, about experiences they've had, kind
Mhm.
of almost feelings they've had,
Yeah.
like again, like when you're doing a technical interview, you're probably verbally telling people of a system you helped design and deliver,
Right.
and you know we're just believing you, which is fine,
But
but
you're
we're trying to
communicating
get
enough to get people
yeah
through that. Yeah.
we're trying to get beyond we're way past the objective into the subjective, and we're making human judgments.
Yeah.
And this is where I want to get into the next topic. We're making judgments about the person across from. Let me tell you a real quick story. It's not really related, but it's stuck in my mind. One time I interviewed a guy, and this was at a building in Loveland that you and I worked at, the 3-story
Okay.
one. And behind, we were in a conference room on the first floor. Behind him was all like floor to ceiling windows,
Hmm.
and his back was to those windows, and I was sitting with facing him so I could see through the windows and him. And throughout the entire interview, uh, he was looking over both shoulders almost nonstop. So he'd make a little bit of eye contact with me some, and then his head would sweep to the right and like lean back, like he was expecting a hitman any minute.
Really?
Yep. And then he would look at me briefly again, and he would look um, back over his other shoulder, both just swivel, both ways. The entire interview, which probably lasted 45 minutes, probably 25 minutes, because I started to think, and so what was that guy doing? I don't know, but it
Did
was
you refer him to the like IT infrastructure team? Because he's not turning off two-factor authentication.
right. Yeah, he's paranoid.
This guy.
Yeah. And I don't know what drove that guy. He did not get the job, but there was just some odd sort of personal behavior. And I almost think it was like he couldn't hold my eye contact very long. And this was kind of a
That
thing.
was his
I don't
outlet.
know. Like, I don't mean that guy's probably gone on to great things. I don't mean to, but my point is there's all these cues we're picking up on whether we will or won't hire them. Now that's where I want to get into the next and probably final topic, and then we'll wrap. Then we get into, so now we're into the subjective side of our mind, and the human mind, as you and I both agree, essentially theologically,
Mhm.
is fraught with peril.
Yes.
The human mind is a minefield of bad things waiting to happen.
Yes.
Also, of the most noble,
Yeah.
highest order
Capable of great
thoughts.
things and terrible things.
Yeah, we don't trust the human mind,
No.
right? So then we get into like the subject, like what are okay things to allow into our subjective decision making, specifically about hiring. There's no, I don't think we're going to come up with a right or wrong answer. We're going to have opinions here. Let me, I think what we've learned psychologically in the last, I don't know what the time frame is, but 25 or 30 years, certainly in the last 10 years for me, the idea of cognitive bias has
Mhm.
really entered into my realm of sort of leadership thinking and personal thinking. And that is the subconscious ways that we sort of judge people. And judging doesn't mean dislike. We
Right.
might have affinity, back to my for word from our, we might have affinity for people for irrational reasons. And we might also have negative thoughts or distrust or negative affinity for just as irrational reasons. For example, I you confessed to me about reversing and parking. Father Darrick, please hear my confession. In my career, I have both initially liked and disliked people because they reminded me of other people that I either liked or disliked.
Yep.
Isn't that the worst of me?
I
That's
guess
just
so.
terrible.
Yeah. It's terrible, but it's, I mean, we can all relate to. I think I've had those experiences of, you know, there's the grotesquely, I think, bad version that we all know, which is to take a people group and do it to someone, right? But not, we
Yeah,
know we
an
know that's not
entire
you and that's not me. That's but there is the, yeah. You
yeah
remind me of my uncle that I like. You remind me
yeah
of an uncle that I don't like, and you
yeah.
have all those. Yeah.
And so when we talk about the subjective part of hiring, I think it's very important that we think about this negative side of our brain and the negative cognitive biases that we want to be aware of so that we're not just dismissing or being attracted to people for the wrong reasons. I'll give you
Right.
some examples, and you give me some too if you think about it.
Yeah.
Like you and I talked about this. I don't know how to cover this, Darrick, on a podcast, but let's just say it just generically as we can. In this country, there are certain universities that have a specific like class ring,
Hmm.
and even when you're a grown-up adult, you wear that class ring all the
You're
time,
you're in the club.
and everyone's looking for the class ring.
Hmm.
And once they see that class ring, it's family. I mean,
Yep.
it is right
Yep.
community.
Yeah.
And so if I was the hiring manager with a class ring and you were interviewing for a job and candidate B, you're without the ring and
Yeah.
candidate B has the ring. If I hire because of the class ring, because of, you probably don't feel terrific about that, do
No,
you?
it's not great. Class ring. I wasn't in a fraternity or anything, but I think that's another one that's like, really? That's
Oh, Kappa Sigma Epsilon, get in
oh,
here, you.
you must be a good dude. Yeah. So, like,
This is when let's go to the other side of the brain. Like I've hired you before. If I was a corporate IT leader again and wanted to hire a you again, and I just went to the hiring manager and said like, yeah, you can post a job if that's the regulation, but I've already got my guy. Is that bad?
no, I don't think so. And I think, I mean, that's it's an interesting point about when it becomes subjective, but there is that, we've been in a 10-year job interview. Like I,
Right.
right. Like there is I think no substitute for that. If you have familiarity with that actual person professionally, or even outside of that, there's a little bit of like, you think of the things that weeds out from candidate pool of, if you know a person, even if it's not professionally. Again, we talked, there's a good and bad angle to that. There's a good angle that is, I know this person's going to show up. I know this person's not going to, just stop coming to work all of a sudden because I know their character, even if I haven't worked
Yeah.
directly with them. So,
Actually, I think hiring someone you've worked with in the past is probably the most objective way you can
yeah,
hire.
yeah,
Like because it's not theoretical. You know what they're
yeah,
like. So we'll go on. So other negative biases can be against, like you said, classes of people,
mm-hmm.
races of people, people who offend you, um, you know, possibly morally, even
Mm-hmm.
like whatever that means. I think sometimes if you are hiring for a company and you're trying to do the best hire, you have to be aware of your negative cognitive biases that we all bring into a situation. And
Yeah,
just awareness of it might prevent you from hiring a bunch of mini clones that are all wearing the same class ring. You know what I
right,
mean?
right. That's a great
So
point.
here's my one. Like I hired this guy because he laughed at my joke really loud in the interview.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to feed my dopamine. You
Yeah,
know, you
um,
know, that's bad, right?
right, right. But there is and then the good spin of that is I can see working with this person and liking them, and them getting along with the team, which is completely subjective. But and there's a very good chance of being wrong about that assessment.
Can
Um,
be. Yeah, people can game, or we can guess our
but,
judgment is wrong, where it's a
but all
2 hour
things being
interview.
equal, is your team going to be better if you get along? If you have
Yeah,
a shared sense of humor? Hopefully not just with yourself as the hiring
yeah,
manager, but as with a team that they'll they'll get along there. I think that's important.
yeah. Now to your point, let's move to the other side of our brain where the better angels of our nature, as Abraham Lincoln said, are more in control. So you get it all here. You get
Yeah,
law, you get
philosophy,
history,
ethics,
philosophy. You get it all here.
you
Yeah.
know,
So now
parking.
let's go to the positive side. Like you said, like we are looking for someone that will treat the rest of our team with respect and will be a collaborative team member and won't be toxic. And we're judging it on, a piece of paper and a couple hours of interview. I totally get it to your point. We might be wrong, but
But
we
you have to
can
try.
we can't we by the way, we can listen to we can allow other people to interview the person. We can
Mm-hmm.
collect their input. We can ask this has happened to me. We can ask the women on our team
Mm-hmm.
how the dude was,
Yeah.
and they will have a different spidey sense that I do not possess,
Mm-hmm.
that I should listen to. And I don't want to necessarily bring a wrong person in. That drifts a little bit negative, but so let's go to the other side. What about let's not hire you for a minute. What if it's a little bit more of an open-ended, like entry level job, which means we could train someone to do it in a month and they'd be fine at it. So
Yeah.
the criteria are a lot less
A lot
firm.
of people are going to clear the bar
Yeah.
to be considered.
Like can we hire based on compassion for someone's life circumstances, assuming they're real and we believe them?
Yeah. I mean, I
Can
think,
we hire the person that most seemed to need the job?
right. I think an
Is that
interesting, I think we can. I think an interesting test is, can you say it out loud? And like we talked about, can you tell that person and can you hear that? Like, um, while it'd be frustrating, I think, to hear that example out loud of, you didn't get the job because so and so is going to lose their house if they don't get it,
yeah,
and you're not.
yeah,
That's compelling, and I don't think you would feel a loss of respect for the hiring manager in doing that, as long as they were qualified. I think there is that like, you're not doing a service to anybody if you hire someone that is objectively unqualified,
yes,
or is going to serve the team poorly to do those things, because eventually the team's not going to function, the work's not going to get done, and the whole team might lose their job. So I think there's a point where that stops being
totally.
compassionate.
Super great point. Yeah. Keep going if you were
Yeah.
going to go.
No, but I
Yeah.
think once you're talking about people that can clear the bar, that can do the work, and you have those compassionate reasons that you feel comfortable saying out loud, like, again, are you going to say out loud that I'm hiring this guy because he's wearing the same fraternity ring or alumni ring as me?
Right.
Can you tell your manager that?
Right.
And are you going to own results? Yeah, that's dicey. Can you
I
say,
love that you
oh,
brought us here. That is a great litmus test we can use for so many things in life, but especially in this case, I think it's a very good. I'm going to play it back. You know, would you be comfortable telling a candidate that didn't get the job why they didn't get the job and why the other candidate did?
Yeah.
And assuming the candidate is like a Darrick Johnson whose heart is large and open and fair minded. So let's work through it. I'm going to give you another example. Darrick, you didn't get the job. I hired a person who is a developer and has all the right requisite semi-objective things we need. They just got laid off, and their wife is going through cancer treatment, and they've lost their health insurance. And so, Darrick, you would have been a great fit for this company. I've decided to hire this person who can do the job,
Hmm.
but for compassionate reasons. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of it stinks. I think you kind of got to be okay with it.
Yeah, I think you do. Yeah. Thank
Again, I
thank you
think
for that.
yeah,
I'm really sad, Darrick, because I wanted to hire
I
you,
know I
but
really
this.
want to be there, man, but
Anyway, so
yeah,
thank you for anything else to add. We can move on to what did you learn today. But if we were to recap what we just said, how would you help me summarize this? Like the we should only hire the best candidate. Like maybe
yeah,
there's a few jobs in the world where that's easy, but most of the jobs I've hired for, it's not that clear. What do you
yeah.
say?
I think that's true. I think it's not as easy, but you have to try. And
Yeah.
and then to your compassion point, there are subjective metrics, but you need to make sure people clear the hurdle. I think that's
Yeah.
again
That's
unqualified
just
is there.
basic fairness.
Yeah, unqualified is bad for everyone.
Correct.
Most qualified is hard to find, and there's lots of words and stuff written about different ways to try to get through that and find the best, but it's not easy or objective often.
Yeah. I agree. In my experience, very rarely is there just one clear best candidate, and we fall to the subjective measures: fit with team, creativity,
Right.
maybe sense of humor under pressure, maybe collaboration, maybe willingness to roll up their sleeves and do work that's below them. Whatever it
Hmm.
is, we almost always fall to those subjective measures, and then we get into some sort of like the really human measures. Underrepresented community. I told you once I hired an immigrant from Australia who was
Yeah.
really desperate for the job, entry level, and he convinced me, and he went on to do great things. But that was a factor. Yes, he
Hmm.
could do the work, but yes, that was a factor in deciding all those things. So I want to bring, I want to allow us to keep humanity in the
Hmm.
hiring process while while being cautious of the toxic negative side of humanity,
Right.
but also not pendulum swinging to where we don't do what's best for. And I didn't talk about this. There's kind of four constituencies. There's what's best for our company.
Hmm.
There's what's best for our team. There's what's best for the person we're hiring. And selfishly, as a hiring manager, you certainly want they reflect on you. That's kind of an
Yeah.
extension of the team. If
Yeah.
you balance all that, what's best for everybody, you won't hire the unqualified person because that's not good for the company and it's not good for the team, right?
Right.
So
Exactly right.
if you balance those, but I just want to bring back in that sort of room for representation, maybe in some cases,
Hmm.
or gender balance,
Hmm.
or which is a different way of like having different minds,
Yeah.
as we
And those
talked
are things
about.
that can make your team better. And
Yeah, and compassion without sacrificing getting the job. I think you said it really well. Can you say it out loud? Can you say why you hired the person out loud
yeah.
without being ashamed?
Yeah. That's a huge
Yeah,
test for, like I said, for a lot of things in life.
yeah. Appreciate you grinding through that. All right, we'll quickly shift to the what did you learn today? What did you learn today, Derek Johnson?
Learned that David's town is really just trying to irritate him with their new parking regulations.
Oh gosh. Luckily, I don't have to drive by it every day. I have to go out of my way, so I don't have to see it. That's good.
You just made
Yeah,
that choice that it's no longer in the way and
I
take
go a different route. I'm so shallow. I learned today that combines steer from their back wheels.
yeah.
I did not know that. Also, you made me think of why Texas Roadhouse in Texas isn't just called Roadhouse.
Very good point.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, is there any doubt that you're in
It should just
Texas?
be the Roadhouse. Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah. When
The
I want
money we could save them on signage. We're
I
going to
go to
save
the
you 5 characters on all your neon right now.
and they probably really want to go green too.
Yeah.
As we wrap up, I go to Texas Roadhouse for one reason and one reason only, and that's when, for some reason, out of the clear blue sky, I'm craving a chicken fried steak.
Really?
Yeah,
I thought it was going to be the rolls and cinnamon butter.
Oh, I eat those. I always forget about them, and there they are, and I eat them. But
Yeah.
it's hard to get a good chicken fried steak up here in Colorado.
Yeah, it's kind of ubiquitous down here. It's actually
You can throw a dart and find a chicken fried steak place and a tea shop, apparently, a nice tea shop.
Yeah. We got to get you to HTO next time you're down here.
Terrific. Awesome. Hey, thanks for your time, Darrick. Always great to see you. Over and out.
We'll see you.
Take care.